Welcome to another episode of Future Fit Leadership. Today we're going to be talking about failure, whether we should embrace it, celebrate it, be scared of it and veer away from it. And to do that, I've got on the couch with me today Marc Rogatschnig, an old friend and the best person I know to talk about failure in organizations and how it affects people. Marc, welcome. And Marc, maybe if you can introduce yourself first and just let everyone know who you are, and then I've got some really cool questions I want to ask you.
Thanks, Mike. I'm a clinical and consulting psychologist, and very simply, I apply those skills into organizations, generally where people are healthy and trying to remain healthy and highly productive. But often that's not how it works out, and the reality of context makes it difficult for people. So that's the primary work I do with senior executive teams, senior executives across the world, actually, and have a small team of highly skilled niche associates that I lead to be able to offer support services whenever we may need them.
Fantastic. So I'm going to cut straight to the chase here. So we deal a lot with organizations, and I talk to CEOs, CTOs, HR managers about the need to be more agile in organizations, to innovate more. But one problem that keeps coming up that we're noticing is there's a distinct difference between what failure, when they're failing, as you innovate, you naturally fail, right? And these organizations are going, yeah, it's great to fail, let's celebrate failure. And yet the people I talk to, it really sucks to fail. It's horrible. And there's this problem of what the organization is trying to put out and how an individual is feeling. I mean, that is a big thing that we're trying to overcome, and just trying to find out from a scientific perspective, why is this the case? And can we overcome it? Is it something we just have to deal with? Just want to get your thoughts. Well,
I think firstly, it's useful to think about just this idea of celebrating failure. Is it really something we want to celebrate? Or what are we celebrating when we celebrate failure, or we seek some kind of learning out of failure? John Cena, sort of best-selling author who shared a different reframe on this idea that maybe we shouldn't just be celebrating failure as this opportunity to learn that makes us feel better about why something went wrong. Maybe we should just look for what is it revealed, what is the revelation that's shown up as a result of this experience. What are we seeing about ourselves, about our organization, about our team, about the project that's revealed itself that we weren't seeing before as a result of something not working out the way that it was supposed to, or the way that we intended it to. So, this idea of celebrating failure, I think, is also something we need to challenge. No one wants to fail. No one seeks to fail. In fact, we're looking to succeed, to grow, innovate, add value. And when we do fail, we want to make sure that we are putting that in the right box. Yes, it's a learning, but it isn't always a learning. So I think overall, I think we probably should be challenging this idea. Embracing failure is probably a much stronger word, I think, or set of words. It's just offering us a chance to go, okay, let's hold this failure. Let's think carefully about it. Let's learn from it, but also what is it telling us? What is it revealed to us that could be useful? I think from a psychological perspective, kind of a whistle-stop tour of where it all begins. Primarily, all of us just want to belong. We want to feel like we're worthy, that we have value. And it's a question we ask, and it's baked into our DNA. It's part of what has helped us evolve as human beings, is we've always wanted to belong to something, and we've wanted to feel worthy in that belonging. It's why tribes were so important. It helped us to survive. Being with others was a key survival strategy. But through modern times, that question is still a question we ask. Not always to be a part of a classic old tribe in a cave, but where we work, who we work with, the projects we're working on. A question we continuously ask is, am I enough? Am I worthy? Am I okay? And what that usually triggers is a desire to prove that we're okay. The word that's often used is sort of a striving towards perfection, getting everything right. Because the world answers that question inconsistently. It says sometimes you're okay, but sometimes you're not okay. And we don't always know why, but what we do know is that if we can control everything we do and do it perfectly and do it well, then maybe that deep question is going to be answered. Maybe we will be so perfect that nothing in our environment can tell us we're not okay. And that's really the kind of the root cause of why it feels so unpleasant when we fail. Because part of what we are interpreting is that the tasks I perform, the things that I do, haven't worked out the way that they should have. I've attached my identity and worth to those activities, tasks, and outcomes. And now the bloody thing's gone and failed. Now what? Now I don't feel great about myself. And I'm asking myself at a deeper level, at a core level, what are people going to think of me? Will I still belong? What will my worth be? And if I have a predisposition to go, actually, I'm not that worthy. I generally don't have a very high self-esteem. I'm not so sure I back myself. Then those failures become reminders of exactly that feeling I have about myself. And that reinforces it. Doesn't feel great. So we have to think carefully when we encourage people, embrace failure, celebrate the failure. What we're sometimes asking people to do is we're asking them to challenge a deep psychological set of triggers that we may not be aware of that makes it very difficult for people to truly take learning out of failure about a project. And what they often will take out is they learn something about themselves, and it can be reinforcing a negative self-perception, which makes people more anxious and which makes people take fewer risks because they don't want to make more mistakes. And you have this sort of cycling down towards stagnation. I'll just stop. I won't try. I'll just go with what other people do and stay away from the failure. Without understanding that deeper psychological experience of the question, am I enough? And how that's linked to a failure, I think we miss something. And it just becomes a slogan.
You just get that, from personal experience. I remember when we were changing our organization and we were moving it from digital agency to a digital transformation advisory. We knew that journey was going to be arduous. We knew that journey was going to be tough. It was going to involve retrenchments, retraining, moving people on. And I was questioning myself through that. I had a strategy, right? We knew we were going to do this. We knew it was going to get there. But as you're going through those conversations, that worthiness feeling, and that I'd let people down, that I'd failed at this thing when it was a conscious decision to move to something else. Sure, and it hurt. It was really, really...
And it's a big gap between head and heart, So the smart say it's the right thing to do, it all makes sense, absolutely, everybody agrees, but the heart goes, ooh, that hurt. And there's something in that it's reinforcing maybe self-doubt. Doesn't feel great.
So how do you, either as an individual or as an organization, how do you start? Well, let's start with an individual.
Yes.
Let's get to the organization,
Okay.
But as an individual, what could you be doing to help you through that process? Because you're fighting, you just said, you're fighting years of nature.
Yeah.
It's in your DNA to respond in that way. Are there ways in which people can cope better with failure?
Well, it's like everything, it's a journey and it requires some self-awareness. So ultimately, it's important for people to recognize that every single day they're seeking approval from others. That's what that question is all about. I want your approval. And our lives have given us different answers to that, and so we are on a different spectrum of how much do I feel approved of or not. The challenge is to not remain there. So whilst it is part of our evolution to feel like we want to connect, unless you're a sociopath who doesn't really care, but really we all want to connect, we want to relate, we want to feel like we belong. So that's an important, enduring, lifelong desire. Every now and again asking, do I fit in here? Am I okay? Can I get your approval? And it's really a great feeling when people approve of us, or they show us admiration, or they congratulate us on something we do. The challenge is not to remain there all the time. So how do you do that? So the first is to think about what is the best version of yourself. Right? What are you really working towards? What is your 5-year plan? Let's get really practical. What is your 1-year plan? Who do you want to be? What are you working at? What do you want to get better at? What feedback are you getting from people about the way that you show up? But it's about setting, it's kind of an achieving mindset, not comparing to anyone else. And this is the important point. It's not about, I want to be better than them, or I want to be better than him or her. It's about, if I think of all my talents and gifts, and I think about the life that I have ahead of me, what would be the best version of me? And articulating that fully as this aspirational direction. I find most people have got no idea can stop people in corporate environments and go, where are you heading in 12 months? They've got no idea. And that's worrying, deeply worrying, because what it means is people have outsourced their goals, desires, and dreams to other people's agendas, to the company's strategy, to their boss's strategy, and they've just let go. Which means they get more and more tied to their outputs at work as a means of identity and self-worth. You've got to decide what is your best you. Do that work. And when you've done that, when you've set that out there, then what you will do is you'll start to realize that the best way to achieve that is to continuously learn and grow and transform who you are. And you will begin to appreciate feedback. You'll begin to appreciate when people say that worked or that didn't work. You will begin to appreciate when things fail and what they could reveal to you, and when things succeed, because they're all hopefully lining up to support your focus on the best version of you. Yeah. I know it maybe sounds a little bit soft, but I can tell you my observation is it's probably one of the hardest things for people to do, and that's why they don't do it. Yeah. So when you move from, I need everybody's approval, to, you know what, I've got a version of myself that I think is going to do great things in the world, and I step onto the front foot, what I can see then is I can recognize that things aren't always going to go my way. Things are going to reveal themselves along the way, and I want to be tuned into that. We almost become addicted to it. So people that test new ideas, innovate, challenge the status quo, they're almost addicted to what will be revealed through their experimentation. And it could be that the thing doesn't work. It could be that it's an unbelievable success beyond their wildest dreams. But when they are constantly focused on this bigger thing in the future of themselves in the best version of who they could be, it changes the neediness of the approval to wanting the approval.
So it's reframing, in essence. It's giving a focus point.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's the same as an organization does with their vision and their strategy if they've done it right. It allows them to go, okay, it's okay that hasn't worked because we know we're working towards this thing. And so you're saying as an individual, you have to do that.
It's exactly the same thing. Otherwise, so it's very simple. If you see your daily tasks as a definition of who you are and your worth, and that fails, you will think you've failed. But if you look at yourself and you project forward a constellation of characteristics and attributes of what would make you kind of absolutely in your very best, thriving, then things that don't go the way they do along the way don't knock you back as much. They don't define you. Yeah. It's simply a case of, well, I know who I could be and I'm working towards it. And that was an interesting learning, and there's quite a... Yeah.
So what can an organisation, that's great from an individual's perspective. I know we talked to a lot of leaders, and that's a great bit of advice for them, and I know they can use coaches and things to help them to get to those points. What can an organisation do in terms of its culture or its processes that helps to foster that reframing? Do they have to work on it at an individual level, or is there things that they can do at a wider level that will help that as well?
Well, what helps, and you mentioned it, is where we're going. What is this really all about? And is that aspiration big enough? Right? What we are trying to achieve, what are we trying to achieve in the world, in our market, in our sector, for our customers, however we want to frame that. Do we have something that aligns all of us up to what is enticing and attractive in the future? I think the assumption we often make is that when things don't go well, that individuals will process it and get some learning out of it. And we also assume that teams will do that, but they don't. Teams generally want to move on, just like individuals do, right? Oh, that didn't go too well. I just want to almost forget about it, right? And move forward. And try and engineer some kind of a quick win or a success to make me feel a little bit better about myself and to showcase this to everybody around me. Teams need to be far more deliberate about the way that they extract learning and revelations from things that don't go too well. And my observation is far too few teams do debriefs after they have come to the end of a timeline or delivered something that either worked or didn't work. They don't spend enough time extracting collectively what did they observe, what happened, what would they do again, what would they probably not do again, and then bank that as part of the institutional or the collective knowledge that they have to then apply to the next project. And so what I observe is this sort of, we lurch from one thing that didn't work to the next. And it's quite gut feel, and it works sometimes, and it doesn't always. We don't always have a common view of what went wrong. Some people think it was just the economy. How many times have I heard that? It's the economy. Other people go, well, actually it was the choice of our outsourced partner. Others will say, well, actually we've just got too few people in our team. I've seen this happen in front of me. So here we have something that didn't work. We could have had major revelations. Everybody's got different ones. And so how that can be applied in the future is now compromised.
Yeah.
So organizing ourselves to ask feedback from ourselves to ourselves, and possibly even from others. So if we've lost a pitch, in our game when we're selling professional services, a practice that we have is to always ask, what was it about our pitch that didn't get us across the line?
Yeah.
And it's all about what we can learn about you in the future, but also very much so about what is it that we did that put you off, that just didn't quite match your need. So asking others outside of your team, maybe there are other stakeholders across the board, inside, externally, to give you some thoughts on what happened, surely is gold.
So I think that's, it's great in the sense of, I love the idea of reveal, as opposed to sort of learn. It reframes the way in which you ask those questions. It means you don't have to, because you've described a lot there, we want to blame something. If something goes wrong, let's blame something, or blame an individual or an environment or whatever. That process that you go through where you're looking for the what worked, what didn't work, what revelations are we seeing, what's revealing itself. Is there psychologically a closure that takes place as well during that point? I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think you intuitively experience that when you're sitting with a group of people who are all feeling possibly quite down about something that didn't go too well. You have an opportunity to share what you've observed, what you've seen, how you're feeling. And the first experience is, oh, I'm not alone. And we see this so often. People struggling away, bashing away at something that just isn't quite turning the way they want it to, or moving in the direction that they thought it would. And then you gather them together and you say, let's just do like a sense check on where is everybody. And the first piece of feedback people usually give is, I thought I was alone. I thought I was the only one struggling with this. And so what you get a chance to do is just name the disappointment, name ultimately then also the opportunity. Some people get there quicker than others based on their preferences and their personality and their life experience. Some people have just been knocked so many times that all they're looking for in the environment is any information that's going to help them protect themselves. So they're looking for the worst case scenario. They're always looking for the worst in the situation. We can't judge them for that. It's how they've coped. But we've got to know that that's how they will go into a difficult situation. Others will go, chin up, let's move on. If you're all in the same team, well, it matters that you get on the same page, that common understanding, awareness of each other's experiences is something we can all hold and appreciate. And then usually it's a bit of a release. It's like, okay, like the world didn't come falling down. I'm not going to get fired. My belonging is not as threatened as I felt it was.
So that's safe, feeling safe in your work.
That's right. It's like my approval from others actually isn't as strongly hinged to this failure as what I was feeling it was.
So as leaders in that process of deconstructing what happened, how you turn up and how you behave, how you project yourself amongst those in that room is going to be a big part of that. If you come in angry, if you come in disappointed, it's going to it's going to affect that safety that people are trying to feel.
Very, and that's the kind of the evolving modern leader has to be, in my view, far more tuned into the psychology of people than they have in the past. So it doesn't mean that the leader has to hide their disappointment or frustration, but it means that when and it's important to be authentic. So be honest. People will see it leaking out. You're pretending to be all okay with it, but actually you're not. Part of what you have to do is be able to share what you share authentically, focusing on the issue and not the people, and then create an environment where people can lean in and collectively digest what has happened, so that everybody can own it and everybody can own what's been revealed and what's been learned, and then apply that the next time. The big issue often that leaders will have, and I get this, is I can't celebrate failure. Embrace it, are you mad? I mean, we can't afford that. And I also agree with that. I think a perpetual it's okay to fail is problematic as well. And this is where it's well supported by another process, I suppose, that's coming to me now, and that is it's important, has this been a performance issue, a competence and capability issue? If you've in your debrief identified that actually there's a competence here, a recent client, major drive in marketing, tried, kept on failing, kept on learning, everybody was digesting it, but nothing was changing. It's actually the leader did not have the capability within the marketing function to lead this business in this market, in its sector. Just no experience and no appetite really to learn and do things differently. Yeah. So the question at that point was, how much earlier could we have identified a lack of capability and competence and then either backfilled it or actually moved that person on? So it's not to get all soft on performance. It's just to work out the correct balance. So people aren't scared of failing, because fear of failure goes direct to the approval seeking. Yeah. And all I'm doing then is trying to make sure that you notice me in my best light, which means I will filter information, I won't tell you what you need to hear, I will kind of avoid showing you the warts and all, and I will paint a picture for you as my leader that everything's fine, and then next day it just collapses and we wonder, how did that happen? So we don't want to instill all the sort of protective mechanisms people have where they feel like their survival is under threat when you come down hard and you don't let them fail. But we also don't want them to just feel like it's okay, like we just keep on trying stuff and failing all the time and we just move to the next thing. There's something else that needs to happen. That's what we've been talking about. Yeah. Is we need to framework and structure this in a way that makes it productive and constructive and continuously makes people feel that their best selves are being kind of built on experience by experience, feedback point by feedback point. So that ultimately when they're all feeling at their very best, that's when organizations differentiate themselves and thrive.
Marc, this has been brilliant. I've learned so much, and I think what's great takeaway for me, well, there's lots of great takeaways, but the idea that it's not this soft wishy-washy thing, but businesses can focus on this strategically and think, how can you create an environment, how can you reframe that process of failing? And there's some actual very tangible hard things that you can do, and I think that's a great challenge for all leaders to try and work their way through. Well, as always, it's absolute pleasure chatting to you. Thanks so much for your time. I know you're so in demand. And hopefully we can chat soon.
Thank you very much
Cheers.
for having me.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.